Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving deep into a really foundational text of ancient Indian medicine, the Charaka Samhita.
That's right.
Specifically, we're working with excerpts from a translation of Volume 2.
Yeah, this volume 2, it's incredibly rich. It contains the Chikitsastanam. That's the big section on therapeutics.
Okay.
Then there's the Kalpastana, which is all about pharmaceutical preparations, making the medicines.
Right.
And finally, the Sityana, which covers, well, successful management of treatments.
So our mission today is to really unpack this thing. We want to pull out the key knowledge, the insights about how they approached therapeutics, how they actually made medicines, and the system they had for managing health and disease. It's all laid out in these ancient texts.
It really is. I mean, it's a cornerstone of Ayurveda. It gives these systematic descriptions and treatments for just a huge range of conditions. It's where the theory, meets the practice.
Okay, let's get into it then. The Chikitsastam, you said that's the largest part of Volume 2.
Yep, 30 chapters.
And what jumps out right away is the authorship. Apparently, a big chunk of it, 17 chapters, is attributed to someone called Dehapala.
Yes, exactly. Duhabala seems to have completed or, let's say, redacted parts of the original text.
Which suggests it wasn't just written once and set in stone.
No, not at all. It points to it being a living document, something that was added to, refined over time.
And the scope you mentioned is massive. It starts with the Javara, which is fever.
Right, fever. And it works systematically through all sorts of conditions, right up to disorders of the reproductive system.
And for every condition, the text kind of follows a template?
Pretty much, yeah. Definition, other names for it, different types, the causes, what they call etiology, then how the disease actually develops, the pathogenesis.
Okay.
Then you get early signs, the prodromal symptoms, then the full-blown symptoms, prognosis like, how likely is recovery, the principles of treatment, specific drug formulations, diet advice, and some concluding thoughts.
Wow. That is incredibly thorough.
That systematic approach is really key to understanding the depth of this system. Should we jump into some of the core therapeutic ideas?
Yeah, let's do it. Where should we start?
Well, the first big one is Rasayana.
Ah, Rasayana. The source calls this promotive treatment. So it's not just about fixing things when they go wrong.
Exactly. It's more proactive. It's focused on actively boosting life force, strength, regeneration, vitality.
And the claims associated with some of these formulations are, well, pretty big.
They really are. Take Brahma Rasayana. The text claims that sages who use this specific formulation achieved, get this, an immeasurable lifespan.
Immeasurable.
Yeah, plus excellent physique, no exhaustion, better senses, intelligent self-control, even devotion.
Okay, immeasurable lifespan. And I saw something similar with Balatika preparations. The text describes the plant itself as irritating, like fire, but then says using it in Rasayana promotes intellect and Agni the digestive fire, and that early sages used these things to attain immeasurable lifespans and even migrate to heaven. What do we make of that? Are these meant literally, or is it more symbolic about, achieving ultimate well-being?
That's such a crucial question these texts bring up. I mean, they give very concrete descriptions of physical preparations, ingredients, methods, effects like longevity and sharper senses. But then they connect it to things like devotion, self-control, migrating to heaven. It strongly suggests Rasayana wasn't seen as just like a biochemical fix. It seems to blend this physical regimen with spiritual or maybe intellectual goals.
And the ingredients themselves sound complex. Fruits like haritaki and amalaki, specific roots.
Boiled together, often prepared with ghee, honey, sugar, and usually with really precise instructions for how to store them and take them.
Then there's Shravanapursha. That one's actually still pretty well known today, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The text calls it an excellent Rasayana, especially good for things like cough, breathing issues, dyspnoea, wasting conditions, heart problems.
And look at the list of effects. It alleviates diseases, promotes longevity, strength, senses, sexual vigor, intelligence, even enhances complexion.
And what's really fascinating is the claim that it helps you regain youthfulness, that even old people could regain intellect and memory.
So it suggests they saw aging not as this inevitable decline, but as something you could potentially influence, maybe even reverse, with the right stuff.
Exactly. It's a powerful idea.
The preparation details across different Rasayana types are just striking. For a Malaka Rasayana, one version has you steaming 1,000 amalaki fruits.
1,000?
Then drying them, powdering them, mixing with ghee and honey, making them into little balls or boluses, and then burying them underground for 6 months.
Right. And that specific one is supposed to give you a stable life for 100 years without aging.
But then there's another version using like 20 kilos of aналaki powder mixed with ghee and honey stored for just 20 days.
Yeah, that variation in scale, ingredients, prep time, it all points to this highly developed, you could almost say alchemical approach to pharmacy.
And there are others too. Haritaki formulations, Nagabala Rasiana for longevity.
Preparations using metals and gems like gold and silver, that's Lohadi Rasiana, or Indra Rasiana, using celestial herbs from the Himalayas. Specific ones for intellect, Medya Rasiana, ones using pipali fruit, or Triphala.
And Sikaja Rasayana using silajatu, that's often translated as mineral pitch or bitumen with milk. Again, claims about long life, stopping old age, stabilizing the body, boosting intellect and memory. They even list different lengths for the regimen, like 7 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 week.
It's clear the focus is multifaceted. You've got physical health, cognitive function, and this major emphasis on extending life.
The sheer variety and complexity, it really shows a long history of, well, empirical trial and error, maybe, and developing theories about enhancing human potential way beyond just treating sickness.
Definitely. It's quite profound.
Okay, so moving from enhancing general vitality to something a bit more specific. Virility. The text has a whole section on Vaidrikarana, aphrodisiacs.
Yes, and the purpose stated is pretty direct. It's about promoting virility, ensuring you have desirable offspring. It even specifies aiming for male offspring with the best qualities and contributing to virtue, wealth, pleasure, and fame.
It's interesting how those are all bundled together.
It is. And the text is also clear about who this is for.
Yeah.
The ideal person is someone who, desires pleasure and fame and has good qualities.
Right. So what kind of things fall under Bajakaran?
Well, this is where it gets really insightful. Yes, there are specific formulations, things based on meat sparrows, peacocks, cooked with ghee, milk preparations, elaborate rice dishes, even these things called aphrodisiac boluses made from pounded pork.
Okay, so ingestible things, medicines, or special foods.
Right, those represent the sort of material interventions.
Yeah.
But then the text just dramatically expands the definition.
How so?
It starts listing other sources of sexual exhilaration that have nothing to do with eating or drinking anything specific. It lists massage, anointing the body, baths, perfumes, garlands, wearing nice clothes, being in a comfortable house.
So external factors, ambiance.
Exactly. And it keeps going. Sensory experiences, the sound of favorite birds, the tinkling sound of women's ornaments, gentle touch.
Wow.
Then things in nature. Drunken bees and lotus ponds, kind of a poetic image there. Fragrance of flowers, cool ground under trees, rivers, mountains, moonlight, nice breezes, pleasant sights, good company, orchards in bloom with birdsong.
It's a very long list.
It is. And good food and drinks, music, perfumery.
Mm.
And finally, it lands on having a noble and disease-free psyche, a healthy mind.
So it's saying your state of mind and your environment are just as important as any special potion.
That's the implication. Absolutely reveals this truly holistic view of pleasure and virility. It's not just about the physical substance you take. It's equally, maybe even primarily about the environment, the sensory inputs, your psychological state, social factors.
That blend of the physical and the experiential is really striking.
It's a key insight, I think. It suggests the mind and surroundings are powerful aphrodisiacs in themselves.
Okay, so beyond these treatments aimed at promoting vitality or virility, the Chikitsasanam obviously gets into specific diseases. Let's look at a couple of examples to get a feel for how they approach therapy. Javara, fever.
Right. And the text gives fever this mythical origin story born from Shiva's third eye when he was angry.
Again, that link between the physical and something bigger, cosmic, or emotional.
Exactly. And the symptoms are described based on which dhatu, the fundamental body tissues, is affected, and which doas, the bodily humors, vata, pitta, kapha, are dominant. You get really vivid descriptions: red-hot boils, thirst, bleeding, burning sensations, restlessness, giddiness.
It lists different types, too. Quotidian, tertian, quartan fevers, intermittent fever, Vyamajavara.
Yes, and it often links that intermittent type to all three doas being involved. It also discusses the paroxysm, that sudden attack or worsening of symptoms.
What about treatment?
It's varied. There's something called lighting therapy mentioned for fever caused by wasting or fear or anger. The source doesn't quite explain what that is, but it's listed as a distinct approach.
Interesting.
Diet is huge, often starting with specific gruels, different ones depending on the symptoms and the do's involved. For fever, with the burning sensation, they use cooling things, like cold water.
And ghee preparations, I saw those mentioned.
Yes, but here's where it gets nuanced. Ghee preparations are used, but the text specifically says they're contraindicated, don't use them in acute fever if they think the ghee might bind the dews and make things worse.
Ah, so it's not just take this for fever, it depends on the stage, the presentation.
Exactly. It shows a sophisticated understanding of timing and appropriateness.
Yeah.
Light food and beneficial soups are also generally recommended.
And they even tackle severe forms, like Sanapada Javara.
Right, caused by all three duas being severely aggravated at the same time. Symptoms sound awful pain everywhere. Bones, head, joints, a tearing feeling, delirium. And the text is realistic. It notes this type is often considered incurable, especially if the dues are really stuck and the digestive fire, the agony, is gone.
So it acknowledges limitations. It's not claiming miracle cures for everything.
No, it seems quite grounded in observation of severity.
Okay, let's look at another one. Kushta. This seems to cover leprosy, but also other skin disorders.
That's right. And the causes listed are, well, eye-opening. You have the expected things like incompatible food combinations or too much physical exertion, heat exposure. But then it lists suppressing natural urges, improper use of cold or lightning therapies, and then insulting Brahmins or teachers and indulging in sinful activities.
Whoa, so moral conduct and social respect are listed as direct causes of skin disease.
Directly. It clearly links physical illness not just to diet and environment, but to your actions, your ethics, even how you interact with certain people in society. They identify 7 pathological factors, the 3 dolenz plus 4 others affecting skin, blood, lymph.
And they describe different types.
18 types, 7 major, 11 minor. With distinct looks, Kapalakushta is reddish, dry, rough. Almbara has burning, itching, looks like the Udambara fruit. Butcherika is whitish with red edges like lotus petals. Very specific visual descriptions.
How did they treat it?
Treatment involves purification therapies, the Panyakarma procedures we'll probably talk more about, like emesis, purgation, enema, also bloodletting, ractomochia, plus external things like pastes and oils, and a strict diet.
And the formulations?
These herbs, minerals, and quite notably cow's urine, either straight or mixed with other things.
Cow's urine features quite prominently in some traditional systems, doesn't it?
It does. And even for Klebsiella, which seems to be leukoderma or vitiligo, the causes, again, mix the physical incompatible food with the moral or social. Telling lies, ingratitude, insulting teachers, sinful acts, even bad deeds from a past life.
Wow, that's a profound connection.
Treatment is similar. Evacuation, bloodletting plus various external pastes and oral medicines. Some ingredients sound quite intense, like pastes with burnt bone or peacock's bile.
Peacock's bile.
Yep. And the text notes it's curable in the middle stage, but gets harder to treat as it progresses. The consistent inclusion of these moral or karmic causes for skin disease really gives you a powerful insight into their integrated view of health. The inner state, your actions, directly impacting the physical body.
Let's take one more. Unmada. Insanity.
Another fascinating one. Causes again span the physical, like bad food, and the psychological or spiritual. Mental shock from insulting gods, teachers, Brahmins. It's linked to messed up doas, but also crucially to possession by spirits. They even distinguish between innate and external or exogenous types.
What are the general symptoms described?
It sounds like a profound mental break. Perverted intellect, restlessness, the eyes look strange or vacant, impatience, rambling, incoherent speech, the mind feels empty. The text says the person doesn't know pleasure, pain, ethics, or religion anymore. Loss of sense leads to loss of knowledge.
That sounds like a recognition of serious mental illness.
I think so. And the symptoms they link to specific types of spirits are incredibly detailed and, well, culturally specific. Like, if it's Gandharvas, the person loves music, dance, perfumes, wears red. If it's Yakas, they might sleep a lot or weep or laugh uncontrollably, love arts and music, have red, agitated eyes.
And others.
Brahmayakas are associated with loud laughter, dancing, but also quoting scriptures while showing contempt for gods or physicians. Kind of a challenging, rebellious presentation. Rakos and Pijakas are linked to more morally negative traits appearing periodically. Backbiting, stealing, greed, wickedness.
So how did they approach treatment for this?
It's a real mix, reflecting those perceived causes. Physical methods like applying oils, unction, massage, therapeutic smoking, external applications like eye salves, collyrium, or snuffs, and administering special ghee preparations.
Okay.
For the type blamed on spirits, chanting hymns is recommended. But, and this is really key, they also use psychological tactics.
Like what?
Threatening the person, terrifying them, giving gifts, trying to make them happy, consoling them, frightening them again. The text explicitly says these are used to divert the mind and shock it back to normalcy.
So direct psychological intervention
Yep.
alongside the physical and spiritual.
Absolutely. It shows a really sophisticated dynamic understanding that you could manipulate the mental state through these kinds of external psychological pressures. It wasn't just herbs and prayers.
And the Chikitsastanam covers many other diseases too, right? We just picked a few.
Oh yeah, tons. Internal bleeding, ractopita, treated with cooling measures, abdominal lumps, gulma, urinary issues, including prameya, which sounds like diabetes, noting sweet urine and treating with diet and exercise, wasting diseases like Rajiakama, tuberculosis, with its own mythical origin and treatments focused on building strength.
The range is just huge. It really paints a picture of a comprehensive diagnostic system and a vast toolkit of treatments.
Tailored in very intricate ways to the specific condition and the patient's state.
Now, all these elaborate therapies, especially things like Rasayana or the purification methods, must have required really careful preparation and application.
Exactly. And that's why Volume 2 also includes the other two sections, Kalpastanam and Sithithana.
So what's the focus of Kalpastanam?
That's basically the pharmacy manual. It's all about how to properly prepare the emetic drugs to induce vomiting and purgative drugs, laxatives.
Which are key tools for their purification therapies.
Right. So this section gets into the nitty-gritty, the importance of preparing them correctly, the different types of plants used, how they work, how to get the maximum effect, practical stuff like when and how to collect the plants, how to store them, how to administer the final preparation.
And it gives specific recipes or instructions for different plants?
Oh yeah, very detailed. For plants like Madana, Jamuta, and many others. That example we talked about, the 1,000 Amalaki foods being processed and buried, that level of detail is typical of the Kalpasana. Specific quantities, steps, storage methods.
It really emphasizes that successful treatment wasn't just knowing which plant, but knowing exactly how to prepare and use it.
Meticulously.
Good.
Which leads us nicely into the Siddhihana. Siddhi means accomplishment or success. This section is about successful management of therapies.
Getting the treatment right in practice.
Especially those major evacuative therapies, the Panya Karma. This card is very procedural. It lays out things like the minimum and maximum time periods for the preparatory steps, like applying oils, snahana or unction, and applying heat, svedana or fomentation.
So timing is crucial.
Very. It details how to get the patient ready for the evacuation procedure itself, what diet they should follow before, during, after, and critically, it describes in minute detail the signs you look for to know if the procedure like emesis or purgation or enema worked properly, or if it was insufficient, or if it was excessive.
Monitoring the patient's response.
Closely. And there's a huge amount of detail specifically on Basti, the therapeutic enema.
That seems to have been a really important procedure for them.
Clearly. The text discusses different types niruha, which are often decoction-based, non-oily enemas, and anavasana, which are oil-based enemas. Gives formulations for them, discusses potential complications and how to handle them, the methods of application.
Even the equipment.
Yes. Precise requirements for the size and shape of the enema nozzle, the bag or pouch used to hold the liquid.
They really thought through every single practical aspect.
From prepping the patient and the materials to how you administer it, what care is needed afterwards, and troubleshooting if things go wrong. It's incredibly thorough.
And the Siddhana covers similar details for emesis and purgation, too.
It does. Their effects, how to manage them properly. It's not just a list of treatments, it's a practical manual for carrying them out safely and effectively, anticipating problems.
It even gets into managing problems related to vital points on the body, the marmas.
Yes, and specific issues affecting the heart, head, bladder, certain neurological-like conditions, apatantraka, tandra, types of headaches, even nasal therapies.
So, the Kapasheim and Siddhihana together show us this wasn't just abstract theory or a collection of recipes. It was a hands-on medical system.
Absolutely. With detailed protocols for making medicines and for performing complex procedures, emphasizing technique and careful patient management just as much as picking the right remedy.
One other thing that really struck me from looking at these sources is how the translation often points out textual variations. Different commentators like Chakrapash or Gangadhara apparently had different readings or interpretations.
That's a really critical point. It shows the Charaka Samhita wasn't treated like some static, unchanging dogma. It was a living text. Meaning scholars studied it, debated it, interpreted it for centuries, Different commentators might have preferred slightly different versions of a verse, or disagreed on the identification of a plant name, or explained a complex idea in their own way.
So the fact that these variations and debates are recorded tells us something.
It tells us the text was actively engaged with, constantly re-examined, translated, commented upon. It wasn't just passively received. It was part of an ongoing scholarly and practical tradition that adapted and evolved as it was transmitted across time and place.
It highlights that ancient knowledge wasn't always this single fixed block. It had nuances, interpretations, evolution.
Exactly. Through commentary and practice.
Okay, so let's try and bring this together. What does this all mean for you listening today? We've taken this deep dive into Volume 2 of the Charaka Samhita.
Exploring its really detailed system of therapeutics, from promoting wellness with Rosana to tackling specific diseases like fever or skin conditions or mental illness.
We looked at the precise methods they documented for preparing medicines in the Kalpastanam.
In the systematic way they approached managing treatments in patients, especially complex procedures like Panika Karma in the Siddhihana.
We've seen how this system goes way beyond just physical remedies. It includes psychological factors, environmental influences, even moral considerations in how it understands and treats illness.
And we touched on how it was a dynamic text, interpreted and debated over centuries.
And this deep dive, I think, reveals an ancient system of medicine that was incredibly comprehensive, really sophisticated for its time. It viewed health and disease through this truly holistic lens, trying to integrate the physical, the mental, and even the social dimensions of being human.
It really stands as this powerful historical record of how a major civilization grappled with the universal challenges of healing, staying healthy, and even trying to enhance human life. And it did so with a systematic rigor that, frankly, might surprise a lot of people today.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, here's maybe a final thought for you to mull over. How do these ancient, incredibly detailed concepts, this quest for immeasurable lifespan, the way they integrated the psychological environment with physical treatments, the idea that your moral actions could cause physical disease, the sheer meticulousness of their pharmaceutical preparations, how do these ideas resonate or clash with how we think about health, medicine, and well-being in the 21st century? What can studying a system like this in all its complexity teach us about the enduring human quest for health and longevity, and just how differently cultures across time have approached it?